this is Kenny Lee Burgess, and welcome to the Blues Kitchen, where we're going to be learning how to play Bottleneck slide blues guitar on 6-string guitars, 3- and 4-string cigar box guitars. Now, these lessons have been totally funded by my students, so I'd like to just take a moment to thank them for their donations. If you enjoy this lesson, please consider donating to the Future Lesson Fund. Go to GoFundMe and simply search Bottleneck Guitar. I'm sure you'll find my page. So get yourself a nice hot cup of joe or a nice cold beer from the fridge, sit back and enjoy your practice. Thank you. Now in this lesson we're going to talk about blues vamp. Now a lot of songs sing about vamps, a woman who's a hussy who tries to use her sexual prowess to allure men away from their wives. But this is not what we're talking about. It's actually a musical term. A vamp is a very short passage, maybe a couple bars, but it's arranged in such a way that it goes around and around like a loop, so you can play it as many times as you want. Now, and sometimes in the blues, these vamps constitute the whole song itself. A classical example of this is Smokestack Lightning by Howling Wolf. But it was his longtime guitarist, Hubert Sumlin, who came up with this vamp or this lick. So you can see, that's kind of the whole song, and I teach that on CD 1. But another way to use a vamp, another classical example you'll find in the blues, is, all more modern blues songs use 3 chords in 12-bar blues, and it's very hard chord changes, right? You hear them very distinctly. But the old blues songs, they would pretty much stick with this vamp on the 1, and then they would use either the vocals or very simple melodies to move away and suggest the chord changes with maybe the bottleneck or a few single notes. A good example of that is Rollin' and Tumble by Hamburg Willie Newberg, or which is very similar to Robert Johnson's If I Had Possession Over Judgment Day. That kind of lick that's like this. See, but when you start singing, or when the instrumental part comes in, you'll see you go away from it and you come back. You go away from it and come back, and that's what kind of makes the progression. I believe I teach that on CD2 in the Spanish tuning, but you could see, you could always convert from Spanish to Vastapol. So here we go. Now the first vamp we're working on has 2 bars, and this is the first bar. But before we do that, I'd like to do a little basic review. So I'm alternating the bass with my thumb, 6 and 4, like this. And I'd encourage you to tap your foot along, because 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 1 bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now to add the higher notes, the treble notes, 2 basic methods. One is the note falls in between, so like 6, 1, 4, 1, 6, 1, 4, 1. Other method is the unison pinch, so like 6 and 1 together, 4 and 1 together. And mixing them up a little bit. Okay, another good little practice. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different in the sense that we're going to go, and I'm going to put the tablature up in a minute. You're going to go 6, 4, 6, and then on the 5th string you're going to bend the 3rd fret down. So okay, so armed with this kind of basic review, I'll play it around for you a little bit, and then I'll put up the tablature. Now, before we go on to the next bar, let me talk a little bit about attacking a note. This is a very simple way to add a lot of interest to your playing. Now, the very basic way I'm playing guitar to attack a note is fretting. You just fret a note and pluck the string. We do that all the time. But you can see here we're using two things. We're using first the bottleneck slide, so we're going like so. Now, when you use the slide, if you wanted a very clean note, you'd go right over the fret, and you can get a very nice clean note, exactly like the pitch. But of course, we want to make it sound a little bit better. So if you just go a little closer to the headstock, maybe in between the frets, and then travel over the note to the next middle part in between the frets, you get a nice tone, a nice kind of fat sound. See? See, so it's a nice slide into the next note almost. And here you can see I'm bending the note down. Another way to attack a note, bending down or bending up. See, I could have simply just used the slide in both parts, couldn't I? Go. To me it sounds a little redundant. It sounds a little nicer to use different attacks. With some more attacks, a bend, bending up with your fingers. So maybe instead of using the slide I can go. See? So again, simple things that you're doing variations in making it sound interesting. A little bit more. So there I'm doing a series of pull-offs. So for instance, what I'm doing is you're fretting the 3rd fret, you put your first finger down on the 2nd fret, and with one pluck, you just pull off. See, so you can get those 3 notes. So because we're playing it like this, see we're playing that first string the second time. If you take your time and you get the timing just right, you don't even have to pluck it again. See, and you can also, of course, all over the place. Instead of doing the bend here, what if I... I'm kind of walking down the notes. Because one last thing I'll say is, when we do bend notes, they're actually going someplace. So in a sense, you're bending this note kind of to walk down, go lower. Kind of a sound like that is the same as... See? So always use your ear to kind of get the sound you want. You just can't, like, do anything. Well, you can do anything, but a lot of times, like I said, just use your ear and experiment with these different ways of attacking a note. Hammer on, pull off, bending, slide, vibrato. I mean, there's all kinds of ways. Walking into notes, walking out of notes. and just experiment and get different sounds with simple ideas.